In this video, we're going to learn how to use the exam composer to create diagnostic exams based on the student's C exam results from the NBCRNA. As you know, when a student gets their C exam results, it'll list the four major NCE domains, such as equipment, basic sciences, and so on, and it will tell you whether or not they got a passing score or what you consider to be a benchmark score, or if they were deficient in one of those major domains. The problem is, if a student is deficient in one of those domains, you don't know specifically what to address. For example, basic sciences alone has over 130 topics. If a student is identified as being deficient in basic sciences, you really don't know specifically where to go to start figuring out what that student needs to study in order to address that deficiency. But using the exam composer, we'll go ahead and I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to click Exam Composer here in the menu on the left, and you'll have the exam composer screen. Now, I'm going to go ahead and assume that you have watched the videos on how to use the exam composer and how to perform remediation, how to create remediation blueprints. So if you haven't done those, then I'd like you to go ahead and watch those videos, because with this video here, we're just going to address one specific tool that you use within the exam composer. So, as you probably remember from those videos, this panel on the left will represent the questions that we are selecting from. The panel on the right will represent the questions that we have selected to include in our quiz. Let's say that a student was indeed deficient in basic sciences and equipment. Together, that's probably 160, 165 specific topics. And we want to find out which topics specifically that student is deficient in and see if we can figure out how to prioritize those so that the student stays on target in addressing the deficiency. What we're going to do is, from this drop-down selector for question selection method, we're going to choose the Rapid Exam Designer. Now that brings up a little panel here, and by default, we're going to include all question types. And of course, I recommend that you keep this selected so that we include all six question types that the NCE incorporates. So for this exam, we said that the student was deficient in basic sciences and equipment. So I'm going to put a check by basic sciences and put a check by equipment. And I'm going to leave the minimum number of questions here, the maximum number of questions here at 100. I tend to recommend that you keep the exams at a limit of 100, or at the very most 170. Obviously, a student is not going to get more than 170 questions on the NCE exam. And so I recommend that you keep this, the exam duration, at a length that the student will stay focused and you'll actually get good data from them. So I'm going to click Proceed, and the system has randomly selected 100 questions just from the basic sciences and equipment domains. I'm going to click Add All, and now I've added all 100 of those randomly selected questions to my quiz, and I'm going to click Save Exam. And from here, I can give it a name, and I'm going to call this C Remediation, BS, and EQ for Basic Sciences and Equipment, because I may want to use this exam for another student who is deficient in the same two content areas. As a matter of fact, I'm going to call it C Remediation, Basic Sciences and Equipment 1, because I'll probably want to create multiple exams for this, and I'll explain why in just a second. So here I can put a description that's visible only to faculty, and I can set a time limit. So we have 100 questions. Most people afford students 1 minute per question. In Prodigy, the national average is actually 27 seconds per question, but I think that giving them 1 minute per question is sufficient. And we'll leave, we're not going to use a question pool exam, that we explained in the exam composer video, and we'll leave the allowed number of attempts at 1. That's also explained in more detail in the exam composer video. So now I'll click Save, and I've saved that exam, and I can assign it to the student that was deficient in those areas. And if you remember from watching the video on my review and the video on remediation, you know that we track students' performance in every individual content area. So when we assign the student those 100 questions, it's going to start to tease out which topics they are bad in, prioritize them based on the odds that that question or that topic will actually appear on the exam, and then put that data in their My Review, which you can use to create a remediation plan. So by doing this technique, you can take the feedback that you get from the C results, the data collection methods in Prodigy, and use these diagnostic exams to tease out the specific content areas in a prioritized format that you can use to build a remediation plan. Now, I said that I called this C Remediation Basic Sciences and Equipment 1. The reason I might want to create a second or even a third exam from these same topics is that if there's 160 or 165 total topics in equipment and basic sciences, I'm not even going to reach them all with one 100 question exam. So what I'll do is I will click New Exam, click Yes. I'll choose my question selection method again. I'll choose the Rapid Exam Designer. I'll choose Basic Sciences again, choose Equipment again, leave that at 100, click Proceed, and it's just randomly selected another 100 questions. Now, it is possible that you could have a duplicate. Since they're being randomly selected, you could have a question that was in Exam 1 that's also in Exam 2, but the odds are not very strong out of 5,000 questions that you're going to get more than a couple of duplicates. And what we would do is add all of those, create Save Exam, and I'm naming them C Remediation. That way in the exam list, when you're going to assign this, and they appear in alphabetical order, all of your C Remediation exams will appear together. So we'll call this the SNEQ2. So now I have a second one that I can save. So once you've created an exam, you could have one, say, for basic sciences. You could have a panel of exams for the surgical procedures, and or any combination, so that you have these exams ready for whatever combination of results your students come back with on their C exam. You can have these exams pre-built, if you want, and ready to go to do diagnostic testing after their C exam and figure out exactly what they really need to work on. Again, as a follow-up, once you've created these exams, they will be in your exam list in alphabetical order for you to assign. So for more information on how to do that, you'll want to watch the video on assigning custom exams.